Hidden cost of modern stimulation, the stimulation environment. Modern life is filled with small signals competing for attention, messages, notifications, updates, deadlines, background noise. Each one creates a slight shift in the system. On its own, it doesn't seem like much, but they rarely happen in isolation. They stack, and over time, they create a constant layer of low-level activation. The system begins to expect interruption. Silence feels unusual. Stillness feels unfamiliar. Uninterrupted attention feels harder to access. And we wonder why meditation feels lonely. What used to be a neutral baseline quietly becomes a stimulated one. This doesn't stay confined to the environment. It shows up in how we work as well. Urgency culture. The same pattern appears in how we approach work. Responsiveness is rewarded, speed is valued, delays feel uncomfortable, so we adapt. We check more often, we respond more quickly, we stay slightly on edge. At first, this feels productive. Things move faster, more gets done. But over time, urgency becomes the default tone, not just in how we act, but in how we feel. Even when nothing is actually urgent, the system behaves as if it is. And when urgency becomes the baseline, it becomes harder to access anything else. Caffeine misuse. Caffeine fits easily into this pattern. It is widely available, socially accepted, and often seen as a simple solution for low energy or low focus. When attention drops, we stimulate. When fatigue appears, we stimulate again. At first, it seems effective. The system becomes more activated. There is more intensity available. But intensity is not the same as stability. Fatigue is often an energy problem. But focus is not just about energy. It requires steadiness. It requires the ability to stay with one thing without constant drift. Stimulation can increase intensity, but it does not create that kind of steadiness. When stimulation becomes the default response, the system begins to rely on it. Instead of adjusting to the situation, it repeats the same pattern. More stimulation, more intensity, even when the problem is something else. Over time, this creates fluctuation. Periods of intensity, followed by periods of decline, then another cycle of stimulation. What feels like control is often just oscillation. Nervous system volatility. As these patterns repeat, the system begins to change. It becomes more reactive, more sensitive to small inputs. Minor interruptions feel larger. Transitions feel harder. The baseline becomes less stable. Instead of steady engagement, there is more variation. On, off, on, again. The system starts to swing more abruptly, from focused to scattered, from engaged to fatigued. Not because something is wrong, but because the inputs have changed. Why focus becomes fragile. When the baseline is constantly stimulated, focus becomes harder to access, not because of a lack of discipline or effort, but because the system is no longer configured for it. Focus depends on stability, the ability to stay with one thing without needing constant input or interruption. But in a system shaped by stimulation, that stability becomes less available. So we interpret the experience the only way we know how. We assume we are distracted, unmotivated, inconsistent. But often the issue is simpler than that. The environment has been shaping the system all along. Understanding that environment is the first step, because until you see it, it's easy to assume the problem is you.